right, so it seems we are online now, and I wanted to bring today for our live session the tool I have written a long time ago already, actually, almost 1 year ago, which is a GPT, a ChatGPT terminal UI, terminal interface. There is this little GIF here to give an idea of how to use how you can actually use how this tool actually works. I'm gonna go through the README, which is available on the repository. So if you want to check out the repository for this video, it's on gitlab.com/apratis/gpt-tui.git. So yeah, this guy here is the one you want to clone and check out. So let's scroll back a little bit and let's go through it. So GPT-TUI is a terminal-based user interface for ChatGPT written in FatScript. And the opportunity here we'll be exploring today exactly to understand a little bit how to use FatScript to create something like this. And you're gonna see it's actually simple. So it offers a command line interface CLI for you to use OpenAI models. There are key features including an interactive mode that uses recent messages from the session to provide context to the GPT model. So basically that means that you have in the CLI still some sort of ChatGPT experience. While you ask something, you can ask the next thing and it kind of remembers the last few questions you made. Now to use it, you need to have an OpenAI ChatGPT key. Yeah, I have already set this up on my machine, but basically you have just to go to their website and they provide you with that as long as you pay them. So it's yeah, it's a paid feature, but you can get one easily. And then to install it, so assuming you have already cloned, I'm not going to go through this step, and you are on the folder for your ChatGPT terminal UI. So I'm running here with Fry version 3.2, which is still the latest version as of this moment. And I'm gonna go through the installing process, which is basically just you run this line, fry -b. So -b, what it does is bundling. So it's gonna bundle into this file, which is in my case in a place like home localhost home/.local/bin/gpt. This file is gonna be in a path which my bash will be, my ZSH, my shell will be able to run. And then I'm gonna put in there I'm gonna bundle the gpt.fat file. Now for those who are not familiar how the bundling in FatScript works, the bundler, I mean FatScript itself, what it will do is, let's look a little bit into the code. So the bundler, let's think we are the bundler. It's gonna go into your file and it's gonna look into the imports and it's gonna say, okay, those is fat. So it's not gonna do anything with those. Eventually it's gonna reach these ones, like these arrows, all arrows to the left, they are imports. And eventually it's gonna get here and say, oops, that's not something inside FatScript. I actually need to grab this thing from a place. So you don't need to put a .fat extension. It will assume you use either no extension at all, or you are using .fat extension. For the convention, just the best would be to always use .fat. So configs, it's gonna look into this file and it's gonna pull it in, like literally inline it here. And the same thing goes for help text. It's also gonna get this thing and inline it as if I had just copy pasted the result of that thing into this place. There are some smart things that FatScript does, is it does keep track of things that it has already imported on each scope. So there can be actually some duplication, but for most of the time, you're just gonna get one import, even if you do like this, actually, this, it's still just going to import it once. We can actually check that. But going back to our explanation for how to install, once you get here into the bundling process, you just basically run this line, which is fry minus b, and then where you want to place the binary, the bundle, actually, it's not a binary, and then the file which is the entry point for your program, which will do all the imports, and the bundler will figure out what are the links, like the imports it needs to follow, and it will put everything together. So let's do this. And one thing we can also do is like code this file here, and we're gonna open it just so we can actually see it. Okay. Right. So one thing that I did, I don't know if you remember, I imported the same thing multiple times. So I actually had changed this. So, but even if we go here to the GPT file, let me just quickly format this. Let me tell it this is FatScript. It's not JavaScript, it's FatScript actually. And then if it's FatScript, I can just format it. And then one interesting thing is that right after it does all its imports, it just starts the code that it has imported. So if we had just copy pasted the help text, it would be multiple times here. However, because it has some clever deduplication, even though we did 4 imports, it notice that we are just trying to repeat ourselves. So just import it once. Right, so once you've done this, you can now actually run it. It's gonna be on your path because we just copied it there. So you can run GPT and you can just start hello there, and it will just query GPT and start answering, right? Now, one cool thing you can actually do is we are checking if there is arguments, and if there are no arguments, we get into the interactive mode. But you can also just do GPT, what is the capital city of Brazil? And it will execute those words directly as if I had entered the interactive mode. So let's start with looking at how I'm actually doing this into the code. So now today we're gonna look a little bit into the FatScript code itself, how it works under the hood. So I'm gonna actually start from the bottom, and then we're going to go up slowly. We could do it the other way, but it would force me to read everything. So basically, we at the very bottom, like the last thing we do, is here, start the main app loop. And here, what I will do is I'm gonna get a prompt, which is basically a text. I'll show later on what's the prompt. And this tilde sign indicates that this is a variable, so this is gonna mutate during the execution of the program. And then I have also a response, which I initialize with an empty string, private mode, which temporarily overrides a setting which is store logs, and the tokens, which we're gonna see what are the tokens, but it's basically a list of things we're gonna provide to this parser. So the prompt, basically I'm gonna check if it's not void. So if it's not null, I could also replace it with just null. It doesn't really matter. Both are the same in terms of the effect that we obtained here. I'll just keep void. I think it's better to compare it directly with the type. It's kind of more elegant, but there is no difference really. It's more like a style thing. And then so if we don't have a prompt, this means that we need to exit. So it's gonna exit this loop, and that's it. That's the end of the program. There's nothing more to be done. So when there's no more prompt, it means exit the program. However, if there is a prompt, if it's interactive, then the prompt is gonna be whatever we get from the prompt. Now, is interactive is set by something else. So here, what we check is if system args is empty, then is interactive is true, right? So if is interactive, it will print that log which starts the program, which is GPT TUI interactive mode, type help for more information, and it will print it in the color blue. So how do we get blue here? Because we did do some imports here at the beginning. We imported the colors into console. So yeah, you don't need to even provide the color.blue. That's a little hack I did there. Anyway, and then if it is not configured to store the logs, it's gonna tell us that's not gonna store the logs. Right, so for the is interactive thing, it means that basically if this is empty, it goes into the interactive mode, and now it does a prompt. However, if it is on the non-interactive mode, it's not gonna get a new prompt. It's just gonna use the prompt that created from here, and at the very end, if it's interactive, it will iterate. Otherwise, it just system exit success code. So that's why we observed that it entered here the first time when I just typed GPT, and it started iterating that loop. And now, for example, if I put here help, I can actually get the help, and I can keep on going with this interaction with ChatGPT. So how did this actually happen? We are, every time that we enter this loop, we are getting a new prompt here using console input. And if we had a very dumb ChatGPT, let's create a new file, dummy. Okay, so I'm just gonna show what's actually going on without all these other things which are GPT-like. So if I had an ask GPT function, as I do have on that other file, it would take in the prompt, which is basically a text, and it needs to return me another text. So you declare functions. Functions are anything that starts, that is with an arrow, and it takes the arguments on the left and it executes the body on the right. So when you say ask GPT equals this thing, it just assigns this function to ask GPT. And then I'm just gonna say sorry, not implemented. Okay, so FatScript automatically returns the values, so don't need to put any return statement. Actually, there is no return statement. If you really feel the need of something like a return statement, what you could do is just say return. Actually, don't do this. Forget about it. You don't want to use anything. You just at the end, you just simply, if you want to really make it explicit, you can just say return value. Right. Next thing, we want to iterate over the user inputs. So for that, we need an import, which is console. And then with that one, we can just simply do input, and then you put in your prompt, which I'm just gonna use also a simple greater than sign. And I need to store the result of this operation somewhere. So I'm just gonna store it like my prompt P, just call it P. And then this prompt, I'm gonna later on console log whatever is the answer that GPT gives to this prompt. So ask GPT P. And for now, I'm not gonna do any iterations. So let's just see how this works out. I have my prompt. I type in yeah something, and it will say sorry, not implemented, and it ended the program. I was running in REPL mode, so yeah, that's why we got that other screen. But if we want this to actually iterate over and over again, what we need to do is, so when console input does not return anything, it will return null. So if P equals null, that's the condition for exiting. So while it's not null, I wanted to keep on going with this section. Basically now, for you to exit here, you need to press Ctrl plus D, which sends the termination command. Like, it indicates that that's the end of the file that you're inputting. That's not just a new line. And then it will understand that that's the end of it. It will return null. So in this case, it executes this thing. So now if I start my program, and for some reason it didn't, I know why it didn't, because I have not set that P to something. So I'm just gonna set it to an empty string. And unlike JavaScript, in FatScript, strings are not null. They're just empty, but they're not null. Now it's actually asking me something, and I can say something here, sorry not implemented, sorry not implemented. And if I want to exit, Control D, and it still actually did the sorry not implemented thing, because this is executing after the moment where we capture the information. And what we could do here is say P dot non-empty, then console or whatever is the response. But one thing more we need to do for that to work is we do need to add the fat types, because now we are using this non-empty, which is a prototype member. So this is a method which belongs to the text prototype. So basically you can do this type dot underscore, and it will just add all the native types from FatScript into this scope, and now you get these nice fancy methods on each different type. You can look it up on the documentation fatscript.org under the types. There's like a lot of features on each kind of type. So basically we know that P is a text because that's what I initialize it with, and it's also the return type of console.input. And then here basically if it's non-empty, I try to ask GPT, otherwise I just loop through, which is very interesting because, for example, if I hit enter, it continues because you remember that null is not empty, so it's not null, so it still continues, but it is empty, so it will not ask GPT. Now if I type something, then it will say not implemented. So basically here we have this miniature of how the ChatGPT thing is implemented on its own. Now if we go back to ChatGPT implementation, so there's a lot of things which I basically am checking using this prompt has command. Now has command basically is something that is written on top of the text prototype. So prompt, here I create a new type, I say equals and then something, which can be declared, actually usually I nowadays just declare it with curly braces. You can declare it either way, with curly with parentheses or with curly braces. It doesn't really matter. I actually now prefer to use this particular notation because it helps me differentiate when I'm declaring a method from the declaration of some type, which I do at the top level. So this helps me visually to see what if this is a type or if this is a function, a method. The difference is you cannot do this. You cannot use parentheses to declare a method. Well, actually you can, as long as you don't have like maybe I'm saying something wrong here. We would actually have to try it out. But I prefer to use the curly braces to indicate the body of a method and the parentheses for the declaration of a type. It will work either way. Maybe it will even work the other way also for methods. Let's even check. Let's just quickly check. I know that's because FatScript has a lot of flexibility, and there is like the point where you start like trying to use your own patterns to write the code so that you get more clarity when you're reading what you have written. But maybe we can actually do something like function equals, yeah, I'm gonna do it with parentheses, which is not usual. A equals 2, B equals 6, and then just return A plus B. I'm not sure, but I think it did actually. So yeah, it actually, you can use it both ways for methods, and you can do it for method bodies and also for the, like, they're pretty much the same. There is one difference though, which is the curly braces definitely indicate an object when something is equal to, and you start with the curly braces. Then this is definitely an object, which in FatScript we call it a scope. So here, when we declare a prompt and we put in like this line here, text, it's telling the interpreter, hey, look, text, all the features of text, just add it into this other type. So this is how you do mix-ins and how you do something like, it's more or less like the extends. So basically it copies in all the methods that we had already, like from text prototype. So text dot here you go. All the prototype members are here defined. Some of them are actually implemented in FatScript, so that's why they're a little bit longer. But to text, to whopper, to chunk, size, split, replace, repeat, all these methods, they are implemented in the prototype. So when I create something like this, like prompt, and now I say prompt of X, my prompt is just X. It creates a prompt X. Now the cool thing about this is it already comes with like size, which is something which is in the text prototype. If I had done it in a different way, like let's say another equals, it will just have the apply function, which will take this and will return just the value. And I need to receive a value, which is value text. So this is basically how you declare a type that will take a text and return that value. So yeah, so if I go here another and I say val, actually I need to provide something, which will be hello, and it creates this another hello. However, if I put here size, it has no idea of what is size. It doesn't know what. If I just put in hello dot size, it will know, because it knows that size belongs into text and that hello natively is a text. I could tell it, hey, look, this is actually a text. So you can actually cast the type and force the whatever that thing is into another type. So it will map the functions of that other type into this thing, which will actually allow me to get the size. So the other way of doing is just, let's create another. So this is my another 2, which does include the text here. So now what this means is you have included the text prototype into this another 2. And now with that, you see there includes text. Now this means that you can tell it to give me the size from another 2. It will know how to get the size because it will look it up into its includes, and text knows how to look up the size of itself. So basically here the prompt is just an override of the text prototype. So I provide value so that you can provide whatever is going to be the value, and I override the apply method returning that value. So I just basically skip over keeping like a scope or not this type as an object. I just return the text. And then I add another method for this prototype, which is has comment, and then it uses the self starts with, which we just saw that makes part of the text prototype. And I check if the command starts with 2 dashes or slash, and if it starts, well, then it returns a boolean, which I then use to do different things. If I have like setup, help, exit, how does that actually do in GPT? Which means if I type slash help, it will trigger that thing of its own, that other branch, which is okay, prompt is now empty, and just log the help text. If I say slash exit, it will exit. But if I just say hey exit, it will actually prompt. It looks like you might want to end our conversation. If you had another question in the future, feel free to ask. Have a great day. So here now, because I didn't use the slash, it didn't think this was a command, so it didn't process it, and it just sends it up to ChatGPT. So basically that's that's the main structure here of the program. I just noticed that we have here with us João Carlos asking why the return of console log messes the loop. I probably missed that, so I'm not sure what we were talking about at that point. But I guess it must have been something related to this part. I think he already understood what it was about. Anyway, but basically, if you have a return value here, which is different from null, it will not terminate the execution. You could, the other way you could end this is if you actually actively test here. You can here use the question mark to just simply um, um, do the left, the right hand side if not this. But you can also do like nested if else's. If you would like to just use commands here, you could just do something like without doing all that starts with, which I did on the other one, which prompt has command. You could just simply use the starts with here directly and say, okay, if my p starts with exit or /exit or whatever, then do system. I didn't import system, so I need to import system. System dot exit, and then you put out the exit code you want. So now with that, on our simple dummy example, if we go here and we say /exit, it exits. If I do just put exit because there's no slash there, it will say sorry not implemented. And if I just press Ctrl D, type can't resolve scope of starts with. Now that's a problem. That's actually an interesting problem. What happened here is I'm testing all these stuff after like I'm trying to do a starts with a p, which now we know is a null. So that's why we got this can't resolve scope of starts with, because now this type here is actually void. So to continue this part of this section of the code, actually I need to ensure this is a text. So one way to do is I can just say if p equals text, because it could be a void, it could be null. So yeah, if it's a text, then do this. If not, exit or just loop again. And when it tries to loop again, it will check here, oh, this is actually void, and then it will exit. So now I can actually say bad syntax. So I did something wrong here. Yes. So if p equals text, it means it belongs. It's p is this type. It can't be void. So it will exit. From now on we know that we are dealing with a text, and it can actually execute correctly. I'm now looking here. João Carlos said, I thought that you already responded, but yeah, I understood that it only is the different logic for just running when it has a prompt. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, but I think it was good to come back to this one, because we did actually have some actual issue here, which could happen easily with anyone trying to work out the output of this thing, because if you press Ctrl D, you can actually return from input a null. That's something important to know about FatScript, which is there are a few functions which can respond with null, And that's because there's the option. All values on a function are optional when they return. So if, for example, this function says ask GPT prompt text, it ensures you that it's not going to be any other type except for text or void or error. So actually, it cannot be a number. Like if you say 2, and then it will give us an error because it will say, hey, this thing you're trying to return here is not now the return value is actually, it went one line down because we have another line, so it will return this thing. It can't return because it's say, oops, 2 is a number, it's not text, so you can't return from here. So it's going to crash. If we run there and we just prompt it something, it will say type error, bad return value number. Yeah, you can't return the number from here. So, but if you put null, that's the sad part about it. But it's actually the flexible part of FatScript. It will allow it. There is no option. There's no direct thing like an option. So you have to be careful not to return nulls. So if you put here, it's just gonna go null, and yeah, that's it. The lucky part is that console log actually accepts any, so it is even capable of logging null. So in that case, the return here for console is not a problem, that it is a null. And also you could return here an error, like whatever error, you could create an error. Yeah, you need to do the checking for void. The error type can be used as a value. No, you can't use error types as values, not like such. If you do have an error, like let's say we now put the message here not implemented inside an error. Okay, so you're gonna return error which is then not implemented. Now, generally this would crash. Like there's no way it won't crash. You will run this, and as soon as you do something here, crash. Sorry, not implemented. But there is a way to get around this, which is you need to use a failure handler. So the way to get out of errors, there are two ways to get out of it. One way is you can run fry and tell it, hey, don't crash. So you say minus minus error or minus e, and it will execute this code without the ability to fail. I mean, it won't crash if it finds an error. It will continue executing, and then you will kind of get this error message bubbling up into some other place. And then if you say something like this, it actually prints it, error, sorry, not implemented. So console log actually is able to print an error. Usually you will not run with minus e. So the correct way to fixing this is there are two ways you can resolve this. One way you can resolve this, you can, when you execute something, you can use the default value handler, which is like response, and then you put ask GPT for this thing, and then you put question mark. So this is, you provide now a default value, which is gonna be like, yeah, failed. And now you log the response. In this case, what will happen is ask GPT will throw this error. This operator is the only one that is capable of capturing errors. And then it will say, okay, it's an error. So this one will only yield this value if it's null or error. So this is exactly intended to capture these kind of outputs. And then it will store into response this value failed. So here, even if we remove the -e, you can actually now just say this and reassignment to immutable. Okay, it's not liking something here. Response. I'm not sure why it didn't actually work there. It's actually suppressing the response. It's not going through console log. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. I'm not really sure. I will have to actually examine why this is not working. But the other way to solve this, which is the correct way of solving this, is you put in a failure handler. Yeah. The problem usually with errors is that when you do something like this, you end up it ends up skipping sometimes the scope where this is executing. So I think that something in like this must be happening here for it actually to not execute in that place. Like it's jumping to the end of this part. Something like that is happening here. Actually, this is a bug. I have to look into it. This should not happen. But let's try with failure. Now with failure, the thing is you also will need a function to actually use it properly. So you need like a safely ask GPT, something like that. And then the same kind of prompt and text and whatever. And then here inside it is where you actually do the trapping. So failure dot trap. So it will exit if there is an error. It just exits this function with failed, and then you do the ask GPT thing. And then in this case, it will never fail for sure. Now, if we do safely ask GPT here, I'm just going to remove this, and it should work now. I'll double check why the other one with the question marks. I will take note of that. I think that's actually a bug, but maybe there is some reason why it didn't work. So now if we just type in anything, type error, type mismatch, prompt method text provided, but text expected, trap with failed. Okay, that's trap, not trap with, that's why. Now it returns the right thing. So there are two different methods here. So there's failure trap, which just basically traps this, and trap with, you tell it use this handler. Whenever this happens, just execute this in place. So it replaces this function with this function here when an error is hit during its execution. So that's basically how it works. This was an interesting part here with regards to error handling. I must say that I was actually not expecting the other one to not work. I will try again now within another function. So this should be equivalent to the other solution. I'm not sure why it didn't work. So let's see if now it works the same. So here it actually does work the same, but inside, I think the problem here is because we have this casing system. It actually jumps out of the casing, and then you can't really return this, like because of how it's implemented, it can't really return. I still think it's a bug. I need to investigate more. But here, as you can see, you were able to ask GPT, and then if not, it just returns this value. So that's another way you can actually resolve without needing to explicitly create the trap with and add a failure handler. The failure handler is usually more useful if you do have some more complex logic, like you want to match on different types of errors. You have like error subtyping, and then you want to handle one but don't handle the other and pass through. All these kind of things can be done using trap with. If you just want to provide a default value if it fails, that's probably the most simple, easy, practical way to resolve it. Nice. So basically, let's come back to the main logic which we are exploring here on our we're investigating here on our GPT. So basically what I do here is on this main loop, I check all these prompt values and I do different things from setting up like the wrapping, disable logging, read a file and use it as part of the prompt. Review allows you to use, here we do a system call and we use less to actually load the log file for that day, I think, something like that. Or you have to provide the date for which you want to check the logs. Yeah, you have usage, you have to put in the date for it to work. And setup, it will allow you to reset the ChatGPT API key, help, exit, all the things we've seen before. And if nothing of those happens, or if they happen and whatever else is left on the prompt, it will just ask GPT the prompt. João Carlos has asked if even in a function untrap is needed. So coming back to this one, no, you don't need to do any untrap here. So when it ends executing this block, if you had used the previous trap with method, you would, once it ends the execution of this block, it pops the function call from the stack, and along with getting out of that function, it also removes any traps that were set into that function scope. So the way that failure trap with works is it traps always the scope in which it is executing. And that's basically it. So you only need to do untrap if you're trying to handle one specific error in one place, and then let's say you want to use a different failure handler from the next section, do something else, other failure, and then you have more code here, and you cannot trap something that is already trapped. So in this case, you will explicitly have to say failure.untrap. That's why this function exists. It only serves this purpose to allow you to change the handler for the continuation of your code. Usually, to be honest, I never use it, but it's there. It might be useful in some case. Okay, going back to GPT implementation. When we ask GPT, I will just go quickly through what actually happens. We do store the messages into the history, removing the last message. So we go from minus history size until what we can store. So anything that is before that will be left outside. So it will effectively just keep the maximum amount of the history size, and then it will add this new message to the context, to this history, which is the role is user, the content is prompt, and here we do some replacing to remove any blank lines and new lines with some escaped /n, and then we just do this recode to JSON. To be honest, this is old code. Nowadays, even you don't need to do recode to JSON if you're gonna do HTTP post or get or anything like that. There is like a inference system on post, which it will immediately infer that if you're providing some scope, it is actually a it can be sent as JSON. So you could actually, and I will do this right now just to show it. You can actually just remove this and just say payload is this thing. And then when you call here HTTP post with payload, this is a scope, and it will understand that it can convert to JSON. It will do it automatically. Now, one thing to note is that if you do provide a scope and you provide also your headers like this, you need to be aware that you need to provide the right type. FatScript will set the right type for you on the sending, but if you receive, like if you do provide a text here and you don't set the content type, it will actually put content type / text. So you need to set it properly. If you are doing your own you're creating your own payload, you actually need to pay attention. If you're doing the encoding, you need to pay attention. If you're providing a text, actually this is safer because even if we didn't have the headers being set, it would actually directly map it to the right, to the correct type. Okay, so yeah, basically here we can do it like that, and then it will just do some logging. If debug mode, it will show some debug information. It will then print those 3 dots. Then once we get the response, we erase those 3 dots from the screen and we print, we pause it. Now here there's no solution for it. Like the parsing part you need to really do. So you need to call recode.fromJSON because it just gets the body either as text or as a chunk, but it won't do any parsing for you because it can't really infer that the text that it is receiving is a JSON. I might even consider to put like in the future some option to automatically check the headers. If the headers is containing like application JSON, then yeah, the thing that it is there is the text, then convert it automatically to a scope. But currently, and this would be a problem because it would break existing implementations. So I might add it, but as an opt-in feature. At the moment, there is nothing like that. So you have to really use recode from JSON in this case. Anyway, we get whatever is coming back from the OpenAI endpoint, and then we have to get from it the choices, the head of those choices, which means the first item, then the message, then the content of that message, and then we just add into the history that thing and we return that answer. So that's basically how simple it is. The function to actually talk to GPT and to OpenAI interface written FatScript. And one more thing is that one thing you might want to look at if you decide to use and install the GPT TUI for FatScript on your machine is that you can configure it to use different models here. You can specify limits of tokens you want to use, the temperature, which is very interesting because the higher you put it, the more creative, crazy the ChatGPT gets. If you put here 1, it's going to be more creative. If you put 0, it's going to be less creative. And yeah, that's all those things about like those models and GPT and stuff like that. but then basically once you bundle it, like once you again create fry minus b and ask to bundle it, those configurations are going to be encoded into this file, and the token itself is stored elsewhere. It says here app folder, so the token will be in a file in there. I'm just gonna list this. I'm not gonna print it. Why can't it actually see it? Okay, so yeah, here I had a lot of conversations with ChatGPT already, and it stores there the API key in a file in that folder, and you can review any of your conversations also using that method that I showed you. So I hope you have enjoyed our meeting today about ChatGPT. I hope it was useful. Um, John Carlos, if you still are there and you would like to make another question about the things we have seen here, feel free to type in your question now. And basically, that's how you can use ChatGPT on your machine using FatScript. And also, I hope this gave an insight about the language itself, like how to use FatScript to produce a real application, like a real working piece of software. And with this example, actually you can make a lot of things, because you could rewrite the GPT, the GPT itself. I mean, this UI thing, you could rewrite it to do other more interesting things, like some kind of agent that will query the GPT and then use that query to do another query. On, I don't know, you could like build on top of this and start doing like some little agents and play around some more involved AI kind of software. But the basic is just like to ask things. You can just use it directly from your command line. All right. Okay, so I think we're gonna end this session for today, and I hope if you are watching this video afterwards, you subscribe so that you can the next time also join us. If you have any questions, just leave on the comments down below, and I might consider also other topics. If you want to add a question, like some topic you would like me to talk about on the next videos, on the next live sessions, also put on the comments, and I will take it in consideration for the next one. So I hope you enjoyed. Next Monday we are back 8 p.m. in Brazil, and for the next FatScript session. That's it. Bye bye. See you on the next one.